All right. So we're gonna call the meeting to order. By the clock on the wall.
Clock on the wall.
Can't go with that clock.
I was thinking George Thurgood.
Mr. Rich.
Here.
Dr. Houghton.
Yep.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Farley.
Yes.
Here.
Mr. Ellis.
Here.
Mr. Barker. Here. Mr. Goodwin.
Here.
And quorum.
All right, so we have the invocation by Councilmember Rich, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Whitmore.
All right. Dear Lord, please watch over us as we try and do our best for the city of Folly Beach and its residents tonight. Please look over everybody in the room. Hopefully we don't fight a whole lot. Thank you. Amen. Told you.
All right, yeah, just step in. Normally, if you were younger, I'd step down that way, but you right here anywhere?
I'll be all right, thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. So, to continue with the youth program this evening, I have Mr. Glover and Mr. Jennings. I believe they're in the hallway. Come on up front. I told you you could wear whatever you wanted to, but I didn't tell you what to stand up. So Zeke, Jennings, Dan, Glover, how many of y'all came in the front door downstairs? How many of y'all noticed this beautiful piece of art downstairs? Yeah, I did. Give it to these guys. They came to me to talk about a project for their school. It's like, okay, that sounds good. We're going to collect trash, and everything's going to be great. Oh, and then we're going to make a piece of art. Uh-oh. What kind of art we're going to have? Well, we don't know yet. We're going to see what we do. So these guys come up with a great piece of art. Zeke's been turtle walking with his grandmother, Judy, and Charlotte for many, many years, since he was old enough to walk, off and on. And before he got here, but anyway, so now he's grown up. Don't hang out with the old ladies too much anymore. More into surfing and fishing, right? This young man was brought in today that he's going, yeah, I'm not going to say a whole lot, but what are we going to do here? So they created a turtle out of, and very, very artistically, they created a turtle out of trash. And don't know why, but they named it Charlotte, so. Could do something to, I don't know why you named it Judy, but they named it Charlotte anyway. So, thank you for all your work and your environmental stewardship. Thank you for all your work and your environmental stewardship. And we will be moving Charlotte around some to different areas when we find appropriate places to put her so other people can see. Thank you very much. So the good part of the program is over. We can all go home. We move on to staff reports. Mr. Sullivan. Where did he go? Oh, there he is.
Good evening. Per the finance director's request, I'd like to update council on my, due to several emergency repairs we had, especially on West Indian with the water main broke. My water system repairs account, $5,300, has been exceeded. In order to continue installing meters and making everyday repairs, I anticipate we will go over budget by about $4,000. I just want to do an IOU. Does anybody have questions?
Thank you for keeping the water on, though.
That's what we're trying to do.
It's important.
If we can get some parts, that's the main thing. Can't get any material.
And costs have gone up.
Mr. Lutz, you're up next.
Just wanted to give you guys a quick update. We had, the governor signed the bill H3 606, which exempts homeowners from certain building permits. We are working with legal counsel, and we'll have some recommendations for you probably in July of ways we can handle it. But there are some items I've listed here that we have some concerns about, because if the owner doesn't pull a building permit as it currently is, we would have no review, a way to check compliance for certain setbacks, marsh buffers, dune management areas, stuff like that. So basically for sheds, pools, fences, sidewalks and driveways, we need to still have some review capability and way to make sure they're in compliance with the ordinances that are in place right now. Our recommendation will probably consist of something like a zoning or floodplain permit, possibly no charge. That'll be some stuff we'll be bringing to you after we finish going through this with legal counsel. That's the update on that. Any questions related?
Keep going.
What's the next one?
Sentinel Plan, Hurricane Monitoring System.
Oh yeah, I need to introduce Andy Finnegan. He's going to give you guys a little briefing on a new thing called the Sentinel Project, and that's a hurricane storm monitoring station that we have worked out the details to be located. Actually, I should say Katie Street. Katie is right here from Sea Grant, and I believe there's a presentation. Wes, no? Okay. So Katie, I guess you'll have to explain on that.
Okay, they have this presentation.
Yeah,
If you want me to have mine.
okay. I'll go off of this piece of paper, that's great. Everyone can envision what I'm talking about if you don't have it in front of you.
TVs aren't working again?
No.
Short answer.
But yeah, as Eric said, I'm Katie Finnegan. I work with South Carolina Sea Grant Consortium. One of the first slides you'll see there, I'm just kind of explaining what South Carolina Sea Grant is. We have a variety of academic members helping us do research on coastal issues across the state. I'm physically located at Coastal Carolina University up in Conway and Myrtle Beach. My background is in engineering. I'm a professional engineer. But what I wanted to talk to you today about was Project Sentinel. It's a tower that's temporarily deployed on the beach. It's about 30 feet tall. You deploy it before a hurricane comes, so that when a hurricane is passing through, you can get wind speed data. You'll have video recording, water levels, all kinds of stuff that you might want to know about. That's being fed to your emergency operations centers. It's being fed to apps like My Radar, just so we have that information of what's happening. There's nothing like this happening anywhere else. So this is a very unique project that's collecting this data actively during a hurricane. Then the tower is removed after the hurricane passes. The tower is about 30 feet tall. What else can I say about it? And afterwards, of course, the data is used in research and modeling so we can get a better understanding of storms. So you've got the pictures there. There's some other pictures. Recently, they did a demonstration in North Carolina at a conference just to kind of get people interested. There are several sites in North Carolina, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Texas, and of course South Carolina and Folly Beach. So you'll see a map there at 3rd West where we've kind of designated this is where the tower will go in the event that we need to deploy it. They'll use the staging area right there at the parking lot. They'll have the vehicle access that they can just drive the tower onto the beach and unload it. They use a little skid steer to help install it, so it's not too invasive. I just included some pictures on the ground of what that vehicle access looks like and what the area where the tower would be deployed. In terms of in the event that we do deploy it, We will coordinate with Public Works, the Folly Park manager, Nicole Elko, your consultant, your turtle monitor, and of course myself. Make sure everyone is notified that the team is coming to install the tower and all the proper permissions are in place. They will do a ground penetration radar prior to installing it, just to make sure there are no turtle nests or anything, or utilities. It takes about 2 hours to install it, 2 hours to disassemble it. I did forget to mention this project is through the University of Florida in Woods Hole. So they have insurance coverage for any concerns that might be happening. And currently we're just waiting on final approval from OCRM. Likely it'll just be a letter, we won't have to go through a permitting process, but we've done everything on our end to pick the site in Folly Beach and do all the coordination on our end. So hopefully you won't ever see this tower, but it would be really cool to get the data.
And that's available online, live?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be available to the public, but we will coordinate with you to make sure you guys are getting the data live. Afterwards, it is available through NOAA websites, yeah. But live to the public, I don't believe that that's.
It appears as if the tower is substantial and anchored. Zero likelihood it becomes a 30-foot tall, in this case, long projectile.
Yes, I would say zero likelihood. It's been engineered, so the 4 kind of things that keep it into the ground are like 8 or 9 feet, 170-mile-an-hour winds. Most category 5s are 100 or 111. So very small likelihood that it's going to become a hazard.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Ben.
There you go. Thanks.
So you're next. Ian.
We have received an application from Soccer Shots, our soccer clinic provider, our city recreational provider for Soccer Shots for his June and July times at the county park. He's got his application, the River Park. Got his application here. It's a weekly intro to soccer class from 6:18 to 7:30, with the exception of July the 2nd. And that's from 8:30 a.m. to 11:15 a.m. in the Folly River Park. And I checked Colleen's files, and before she left, this is the schedule that was approved for this year. She got as far as approving it at a staff level and saying we're going to schedule this and send it to the council. So we're here tonight for you guys to approve that schedule of use for Soccer Shots at the River Park.
We talking about it now? We cut off all commercial activity at the community center and the river park. Is there not another place that this can happen? Because in my mind, even though I didn't really like the ordinance that we did, but that's what we did. So this is this, and there's another thing coming up tonight about using the community center to park. But I'm just, if we're saying no commercial activity, then that means no commercial activity.
So we did draw a distinction between commercial activity and city-sponsored recreational events. So Soccer Shots is one of 3 city-sponsored recreational providers. We do allow them to charge, but it's a program sponsored by and supported by the city. So that's why it's at the park, because it's a city offering. But you are correct, we did change to allow quote-unquote private commercial, not allow private commercial activity.
And I might be wrong, but I believe they give a discount. It's focused on the residents.
There's a special price for Folly Beach residents. I don't know what the discount is, but it is a reduced cost for Folly Beach residents. That's part of the deal for them being a city-sponsored provider.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any other discussion?
Dr. Houghton?
Yes.
Mr. Brooms?
Yes.
Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
No.
Mayor Goodman?
Yes.
Passes.
So I have a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Would that be appropriate to table that, or would you rather discuss it when it comes up?
You can make a motion to pull it now. That was 1822. Is that the one you found out?
The new ordinance regarding Phil? Yes.
22. So you're making a motion to
The
pull
table
it?
or pull it?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Grooms?
Yes.
Dr. Houghton?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Mayor Goodwin?
Yes. Done when it gets to me.
I make a motion, we postpone 11/22 and send it back to planning for the public hearing.
Second.
Let me find it. Okay, any other questions, comments?
Mr. Oh, sorry. I was gonna call you off, but did I interrupt Mr. Ellis?
No, just a big bird just flew into the.
Oh,
Pow!
Angry Birds.
That's on film.
Mr. Farley?
No.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Mr. Grooms?
Yes.
Dr. Houghton?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Mayor Goodwin?
No.
Passes.
Any other? Okay, back to the agenda as amended. Anything else? Any questions, comments, discussions? You have it.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Sorry, back up, there's too many. Sorry. What was that?
Approve as amended.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, as amended.
Correct. Yes.
Dr. Houghton?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Grooms?
Yes.
Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Mayor Goodwin?
Yes.
Passes.
Approval of previous minutes from May the 10th. Have a motion to approve.
Second.
Any additions or corrections, comments? Whatever you're ready.
Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Mr. Grooms?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Dr. Houghton?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Mayor Goodwin?
Yes.
Passes.
So, the FAB is up first for the July the 4th fireworks show.
Hi, I'm Soraya McKay, Vice President of FAB. The fireworks coming up are pretty, I'm filling in for Kelly Travers, by the way, so I hope I can answer all the questions. But the fireworks coming up are pretty straightforward. Does anybody have questions for me about that?
So, where did Andrew go?
Right here.
Oh, excuse me, so y'all been through all this with the,
Yeah, they've been working with us in the staff event committee.
just standard question, yeah, okay, good. Any other questions for the fireworks show?
Motion approved.
Second.
Dr. Houghton?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Grooms?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Mayor Goodwin?
Yes,
Passes.
don't go nowhere.
I won't.
So we're up for now for save the date for all season events for 2023. Go ahead and
Okay.
keep on going.
Yes, we have, the standard, the New Year's Eve fireworks, the Polar Plunge, the Taste of Folly, which will be in January, Sea and Sand, which will be in February, and the 4th of July fireworks. The big and new addition for next year is, of course, Folly's 50th anniversary celebration. So we have really big plans for that. I know that you have all the information that Kelly provided. So first of all, I wanted to see if you all have questions about that. or any of the other events, of course.
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
I know we'll shut, and you can correct me if we shut down the street traditionally, there's open containers, things of that nature. Over the years, especially since I've been in the children's zone, one of the things I'd like for us to consider to have a zero tolerance in that zone, because what I've found is circumstances where the children really deserve spaces where you don't have to deal with alcohol, frankly.
Sure, absolutely.
So I've really thought a lot about this, and so I put that on the table to continue sort of like alcohol-free zones in the children's areas.
I think that's a fabulous idea. I can't see us having any problems with that. I'll obviously get with Kelly and the board, but I can't imagine that would be, that anyone would oppose that.
So for the 50th anniversary, you know, we got some information, and I think maybe we come back and talk about that again some more. I mean, not to say that it won't be approved for September the 23rd, but just through the time frame, we'll talk a little bit more about how the events, we're talking about 2 days and how the 2 days of just when Kelly gets, we can get Kelly back, because she's kind of the ramrod for that.
Yes, absolutely. We've been, it's very much in the inception stages right now. We've been brainstorming a lot about this, and we have some pretty cool ideas, but of course we need to make sure it jives with what you all are looking for. We had talked about doing just a kind of Folly through the decades, which would not be a street closure on the first weekend, but the more we've been talking about that, it's so much harder for us to provide security if there's not some sort of a street closure. So we wanted to just put that thought in y'all's mind if you felt like it would be too much for us to do a street closure on either end of that week, that Saturday and the following Saturday. It's completely up for discussion. Again, our biggest thought process there was security and being able to man it properly.
Yeah, and I like some of the ideas that she had, but I had a couple of questions like, you know, if he's gonna bring bigger event rides, I don't wanna see them thrown up real quick to get on.
Right.
So, you know, it's kind of like, where would we put those? Where could we put them in a place that gives you plenty of time to get them up safely, take them down safely? And I did not see bumper cars listed in here anywhere, even though there's other things. You know, bumper cars is a big thing. We probably would never find any more, but you know, but just that was the only concern I had with that. So, you know, like the last time we had a Ferris wheel, it was kind of like in the parking lot area, so it was, they had plenty of time to get it up and get it down. It wasn't like they were trying to do it during a street closure.
Exactly.
Was my concern. So, yeah, if we just come back and talk about that some more, put some of those ideas a little bit, I think it'd be good for everyone.
Absolutely.
Everyone.
What's a good time frame for us to shoot for to have sort of a lot more details in place for y'all?
Well, we got plenty of time, so why don't we just say like August?
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, we'll continue to work on that. I know Kelly has good ideas in place for some of these, so she could probably answer better than I can as well.
Okay. Any other comments? So this is for the package of dates.
Motion approved.
Yeah, that's right. We handed that.
Second.
Sorry about that.
Mr. Ellis,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Dr. Houghton,
Yes.
Mr. Rich,
Yes.
Mr. Farley,
Yes.
Mr. Groom,
Yes.
Mayor Goodwin,
Yes.
passes.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to the 50th anniversary.
I know.
I haven't lived that long, but you know, I'm looking forward to it. I have a 40th anniversary banner if you want it. I'll be glad to give it to you.
Just scratch it out.
Just wash it off and you can put it up along with the other one saying, you know, 40, 50.
It'll be a good time.
Huh?
Where'd you get that?
I don't know. Somebody gave it to me because they didn't want to store it. It's kind of like seashells from the community center that was supposed to be ornaments made that they didn't want to store anymore. It's in my garage. Yeah. Okay, the Lung Force Run Walk. Can we go?
Hi, Hi, my name is Susanna Cristetto, and I work with the American Lung Association. And we have held our Lung Course Run Walk at Folly now for 14 years, and very grateful to do so. We used to hold it as a road race. Last year we transitioned to having it on the beach. The event helps to raise funds for lung cancer research and local programs in the community. So we would love to have the event this year on October 15th, held again at the beach. And last year we used the Dunes House as kind of our home base with check-in there, and then the race is uncertified starting at the Dunes House. Beach access, and it's 5K, so participants run or walk towards the pier. The halfway mark is right by like the public restrooms on 3rd Street, around there, and they turn around and finish back at the Dunes House. We have an award ceremony and just a grab-and-go breakfast there. So we are grateful for y'all's support over the years, and would love to hold it again on the beach this year on October 15th.
Have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Mr. Pope?
I got your vote.
Mr. Rich,
Yes.
Mr. Farley,
Yes.
Dr. Houghton,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Ellis,
Yes.
Mr. Grooms.
Yes.
Mayor Goodwin,
Yes.
passes.
Folly Beach Community Yoga request.
Good evening, Council. I'm Jennifer Mahane. I live at 213 East Ashley Avenue here on the island, and I facilitate our community yoga classes. We've been doing them for about 5 years now, and last month I came to get permission to teach on the beach. I've paid my license fees. I'm requesting to have the position moved. Laura and I are sharing the 13th block, and I'm requesting the ability to teach yoga on the mornings, sunrise and sunset, beyond 3rd block. There's parking there, and there isn't at 13th, and several of the people that come to our community yoga class park. When they come to the class, they drive to the class. So I'm just asking that we be granted permission to offer morning classes and evening classes. It wouldn't be every day at that location between 3rd and 4th on the east side. I sent pictures, I think, with my information about where the space was and what it looked like in the morning. It's sunrise is where I'm going to be. The beach is not packed. But I'm also here to request time in the community center Wednesday evenings from 7 to 8:30, and on Friday evenings, just so we have an indoor space year-round. It is a community-based class. It's donation-based. People put whatever they want to in a donation envelope, and I use it for community activities. So I'm just asking for Wednesday evenings at the community center, Friday evenings from 3 to 9 to do activities that would be a movement, whether it be Tai Chi, yoga, just a community gathering on Friday evenings. I know there are other things that go on there on Friday, so it would be flexible schedule when there isn't something scheduled like the Christmas thing or Halloween things. But today it was so hot, and we used to have this community center with the park on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and the library's changed the schedule, so we no longer have the access to that indoor space, and it was canceled today because of the heat. I'm just asking that we have a space so we can keep our community thing going year-round. I have about 20 people that show up for classes, and it is a donation-based thing that I would like to continue offering to our community.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
I do have a question for Mr. Pope. It seems fair that the new person coming in will be right around the corner, and it might be a process that that individual will want to start to work with and figure out and tease out issues and things of that nature. So I'd sort of like to wait till that person comes and then connect and have a process about the use, Friday nights, scheduling, all of that. It just seems reasonable to me.
Are these two requests in one, or are these two separate requests?
One request for the beach access.
these are two separate
Yes,
requests.
there's two- Yes, there's a.
we don't have a copy of the map or any of the pictures that she talked about. We put her down there with Melora for a reason last month, and I can't remember what it was. I know the third access is just busy. It doesn't need to be there. But right, that's what I'm saying. So where's an open spot? I think that's why we put her down there, because there wasn't really another open spot.
Yeah, the third street access already has a surf camp going on, but the reason this yoga got at 13th Street is because there are only so many spots currently approved for yoga, and there are two. There's 600 block and 13th Street, and the 3rd Street is currently approved for surf camps, not yoga.
Okay. And then just to comment on the other one, once again, just like the soccer shots, we said no commercial activity of any kind at the community center and the river park. I understand it's donation based, but it is still a commercial activity. This was part of the thing that we brought up when this ordinance came up, a year ago or 2 years ago.
And,
Is this also a city
yeah,
sponsor?
and this is our Folly Beach city sponsored community.
I hear you, but it's just also, it was the activity in the area that was the problem of why we got rid of it. So if we keep sponsoring everything as a city, we're gonna be in the same problem we were in before. This is what I'm saying. That's why we passed that ordinance.
What?
Which is why I'm suggesting that when that individual comes in the next 2 or 3 weeks, you sort of tease this out more for the person that would be working.
So you're making a motion to postpone this until the new community coordinator is seated and work through the process?
All of it, or the second part of the request?
Second, a community center part of the process. The other one, I have to think about is what you just said.
Well, the other one, we need to go back and look at where, if we decide to expand yoga on the beach.
That's what it
pull the map out
was.
again.
That's what it was, and that's why we said we're gonna have to share there. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm sorry. I think we stick with that. We approve those zones. When those zones come back up, if we look at those zones later, we can entertain the thought. But there's already surf camps there. The third blocks, we try to get people out from the busiest sections of the beach, because the biggest complaint we got before was that people setting up, they kind of take over so much space that people can't walk by and do other things.
Is the surf in the morning as well? Is the yoga in the morning?
I think they're authorized to start like 8 a.m.
Oh yeah, they're there at 6 o'clock setting up, 6:30.
I wouldn't have a problem if staff figured out there's another place that's appropriate, that's spread out, that's not 13th, or it's 12 or 11, but I think it's too much at 3 East to have a surf camp. And
I think we pigeonholed ourselves though. We said only these spots for yoga. So it would have to come back to us. We'd have to vote on like another spot, but I'm fine with that in theory. And then they can bring it back to us, say, okay, we can do that, but we have to follow our own rules.
Sure, but I'm saying to give staff the leeway to investigate and see if
Well,
11 makes more sense than 13.
That's what Dr. Howell was saying, wait till the new person gets
Well,
here.
she's talking about the community center.
No, she's talking about.
Oh, you're talking about the,
Just to deal with it, I mean,
I thought you were
yes,
talking about
it's
the community
the
center.
new
was getting somebody.
position, make sure things are,
Is there someone there that actually controls it? Because I have had yoga teachers that I know that do not have licenses teaching on the beach, other locations. And I'm just wondering, I live here, I'm a community member here, try to do things the way it's supposed to be done.
I will tell you like I tell everybody else. If you see that happening, you have to let the city know. So it's like, see that happening in the morning time?
Well, I mean,
All
I've
public
seen
safety,
Facebook
they will.
posts and ask, where's this happening? And they're like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't be, I'm like, well, yeah, you shouldn't be doing this because there's hurdles we have to jump through to get permission to do this.
If you
So-
see it posted out there, let our guy, well, we'll have a community coordinator shortly, so you let them know and they can go check on it, just like short-term rentals that are out there don't have licenses. I mean, same kind of process.
that's part of the
Appreciate
position.
it. Because if they're advertising someplace they're not supposed to be, they don't have a license, I guarantee you. All right, thanks.
Do I wait or what?
Yeah.
Do I come back?
We can let you know, you can put the new Lacey.
Well, I've got a motion to approve, do I not?
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
but I'm just saying, she's asking what happens if it dies here.
Fine.
We could put you in touch with the new coordinator, Lacey, and then they work it out. And if we come back in a different space or a different place, it'll come back in. So we have a motion to approve on the floor.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Who's second?
Okay. Mr. Barker seconded the original motion, but Dr. Houghton had a motion to amend and postpone.
until the new position begins, mid-July and work.
So,
Vote on the motion to postpone.
yeah.
Can I ask another question? What happens in the meantime? Can she continue to do business on the?
Where she's at,
Mhm.
yeah. So,
Tuesday 13th, like we left it last time.
so what, all right, so here we go. You wanna withdraw your original motion to approve?
Correct.
You second, you okay with that?
I am.
All right. Now we have a motion to postpone until Lacey, what is her last name? Dietz is in place to work. Do I have a second for that postponement motion?
Second.
Okay. So that's where we are. Motion to postpone until Mrs. Dietz gets in place.
So do you know if that will be by the July meeting, August meeting? Do you have any idea what the time frame is?
She comes in the first week of July.
Yeah. So,
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Mr. Farley,
Yes.
Mr. Ellis,
Yes.
Dr. Houghton,
Yes.
Mr. Green. Yes. Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Rich,
Yes.
Mayor Goodman,
yes.
passes.
So since ordinance 11-12 has been remanded back to planning, we're not holding a public hearing tonight. Thank you very much for showing up. It'll be a public hearing when planning schedules it. They'll let you all know.
11:22?
Yeah, 11:22.
It says 11.
I mean 11-12, but it's
Paper says
11:22.
11-12.
Yeah.
Or 7:22.
Well, the one for Justice,
It's 11.
11:22. 11:22, Scrivener's error, 11:22. The ordinance for, there would be downtown commercial district table, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So, any other citizen comments?
I have a comment.
Okay,
Is now the time to talk about the moratorium?
yes, on
Okay.
it's on the agenda.
And
My name,
just for public comments, please start with your name and your address, and we'll give you, start a 3-minute timer.
my name's Sam Meter. I live at 318 East Arctic Avenue with my wife Catherine Grimes. We've lived on Folly 10 years. I'm also a local real estate agent. Wanted to talk about the moratorium. I walked in the door dead set against it, but I appreciate Mr. Farley and Mr. Rich's comments. We need quick resolution on this matter. I've had 2 real estate deals just fall apart because of the uncertainty surrounding the licenses. So I applaud your efforts to get this done quickly. To the point of how the ordinance for the STR regulations will read, I implore each of you to really think about what are the problem houses? What are the problem STRs? I've sat down with the mayor. It seems to be the trend that larger houses seem to get more of the public safety calls. I think it's unfair to treat 1 and 2 bedroom properties the same as 6 bedroom properties. So please consider that. I'm not sure we need a cap. If the regulations that are in place and the long list of regulations that are proposed do happen, inspecting the houses, certifying the septics, 3 strikes with teeth will get the bad properties out, raise the fees and the fines, and definitely add staff to police all of this. And the biggest one, having the county records dictate how many bedrooms you can advertise. All those things are excellent points. I think you should just go with those with a lot of teeth, and we won't need a cap. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Eric Emmett, 9 Red Sunset. We're talking about the ordinance for the embroidered polos.
Oh, shut up. I admit it. Totally, that was perfect. Nice segue. Thanks a million.
You're welcome. I have a home on Red Sunset that's been under construction for about a year. Completes about 3 weeks. Feels overly punitive, to have purchased the property almost 2 years ago. I'm excited to live at that property during the off season, but just feels punitive to me that if you all vote today for a moratorium, there's really no recourse. So I guess I would employ the council to potentially have a moratorium enacted prospectively for single family residences. I'm not sure where the concern is with respect to multifamily versus single, but it'd be nice to have not a sunk cost and 2 years of work without the ability to live at my home. So I think there could be an opportunity for a prospective enforcement of the moratorium, which might be a little bit more equitable for folks in my position and others who invested money with the expectation to have the ability to offset their mortgages with some rent. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes. First of all, thank you all for what you do in your time. Neil Brugal, 1702 East Ashley. I'm just confused. Some things don't make sense. I think I'm a sharp guy, but it just doesn't make sense. This was voted on a year and a half ago, the moratorium, and then it was denied, right? For the STRs. And now here's a year and a half later, and one individual says he's got 3 votes from the council. No petition, no nothing. Is that usual practice?
I can set the agenda however I want to. That's part of the process.
Okay.
So if I had, like I said early on,
yes.
when the young man come to me and said this is, blah, 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 I said, well, I gave him a work order basically that I figured I would never hear from again.
Yeah.
But what I did, then I had to live up to what I told him I would do. So I put it on the agenda.
Since we're talking, let's keep talking. You wrote that STRs, the 4% are a low number. Low number. When you wrote that, the recommendations, although the SDR, the 4% to 72 days a year is a low number, yet it is in certain neighborhoods. It's a low number. But you're grouping that in with the whole thing?
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about what you wrote in your recommendations. Right?
We're talking about, a cap on the whole place.
Cap on the whole place, including the 4%.
And yeah, that's right. Because if you don't include 4%ers, then you got, we talk about all the numbers when we get to the cap.
Despite you saying it's a low number.
It was like 0.5% lower than it was the previous year.
Doesn't make sense to me.
With the cap that we were talking about putting into place.
Okay.
Not that it's a lower number right now, but with the cap that we were putting into place, it would make it like 1% less, and it would make the other one a whole lot less.
All right, let's keep talking. You're going from A to Z. There's a whole lot in between. How many days can you rent a place? If you have one of these big apartments, you want to rent a place. Is it 1 night? Is it 3 nights? Is it 4 nights? I think it's 1 night right now.
Right now, it's 1 night.
Well, it doesn't make sense. Why does it make it 4 nights before you just cap everybody? Make it 3 nights. How about at a home? How many?
All that's in the recommendation. All that's in the discussion.
You're talking about being fair and just to people? That's not fair and just. You're going to A to Z. Okay, that's that. Folly Beach economy. Everybody had a whole lot of money. 401ks were good. You look at your thing, all good. Economy's going this and that. What do you think's going on now? Talk to the realtors in here. Properties lagging a little bit? Are they not getting bought on the internet like that? And it's not going to get better. Things have changed. I worked in finance for 40 years. I'm very familiar with numbers and how things go. You all lived around the Jimmy Carter days? You know how things went? Okay?
You don't have to go back that far. Just go back to 98.
Rates 4%.
All right, we're not. Whoa! We're not having this. Y'all, hey,
So that was incorrect data which you
guys,
for the council.
Stop!
Okay, great.
Quit. We're not having a discussion among everybody else.
Let me just tell you, things are not going to be the same. You put this in this moratorium. This is more of a second home vacation rental. There are some residents, it's about a third, my understanding. You put this in, things are going to go south. Property value is going to go south. You're already feeling it in the real estate market, okay? Don't go to A to Z. There's a lot in between you can do there. That's it, but I appreciate the time and I appreciate all your efforts. But you're taking property rights away, man. It's a big, big deal.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate your time. Thank you. Thanks for all you do.
Anybody else? Well, wait a minute. Yeah, this lady back here was. I can't see who it is.
Eliza. My name is Eliza Still. I have lived at 208 East Huron my entire life, so 29 years and some change. And I've worked on the island for about 8 years. And I want to make sure the interests of actual residents are being respected. If you have lived here any amount of time, you know that the quality of life has dramatically decreased. It's getting to be where people who have wanted to live here their entire life, I wanted to live here until the day I died. And to watch the place that I love become trashed and inundated with drunken bachelor parties and trash in my yard, and people on golf carts weaving in and out of traffic. It's pretty tough to live here now. The bird sanctuary next to our house was bought, demolished, big short-term rental put in, and the runoff has caused major erosion at our place. I mean, you've got to know. It's so much harder to live here than it used to be. And if you truly have an interest in this place, you don't want property values to go up. That only drives out the people who actually want to live here. I think you have a duty to the community to put our interests ahead of any sort of financial gain that you're looking at down the road for yourselves.
My name is Liam Becker. I live at 311 East Erie. Last week I had a nice meeting with the mayor. I wanted to address some concerns with him. And secrets out, I am the one who had proposed the moratorium. I have seen in the past couple of weeks more houses go up for sale and be bought immediately. And I understand it is a hot market, and right now those houses are valued slightly more than the actual value would be if there was a moratorium in place. The reason I had wanted to meet with the mayor is because on April 30th, when the articles had come out about the intentions on having some either cap or regulation on short-term rentals that caused a panic. It happened to several of our neighbors and our friends, and then it also happened to me. I have an email thread that my landlord had said specifically that she was trying to sell very quickly because of the article that had come out, because she knew that she could get a little bit more of it. Her original intentions were for me to stay in that house for a very long time, and she is one of the people who wants to preserve Folly and keep it Folly. I understand property rights, and I am not against short-term rentals by any means. However, I do believe that there's a middle ground that we can find. And a 30-day moratorium, I believe a 90-day would be better. However, a 30-day moratorium, I truly believe will not extinguish this fire of people coming in from out of town to buy these houses to turn them into profitable short-term rentals, or for larger companies to come in and buy these properties and turn them into SCRs. But I do believe it will put some water on the fire and at least slow it down a little bit. And thank you for your time.
Wait a minute, darling, I got one more back here. Ma'am?
I'm Emily Brown. I've lived here for over 35 years. And for the first time this month, I'm thinking about selling my house. I love it here, and it just hurts my heart to see what has happened here. I was sitting in my living room the other day, and it was in the middle of, it was towards the evening, and I could hear Center Street with my windows closed in my house. So I waited a while, and then I called and I said, "Is something going on? Is the city having something?" I mean, my windows were closed. They were vibrating, and so I called the dispatch, and they said, "Well, nothing's going on really, but there are a few restaurants that have some bands going on." I said, "Well, it's just too loud. It's just too loud." And so they did go down there, and it did get shut down. But I've had to do this over and over, and it is not fun to try to decide whether you're going to call and complain or not, and get all upset and everything, and then you got to go wait for somebody. Maybe somebody will quit, or maybe somebody won't. I had a house next door in the middle of the day. Kids were screaming and hollering and a lot of boom boom music, and I went over there and I said, "Y'all are too loud. I can hear you inside my house." I really like to be on the porch. I've given that up because that's it's just so aggravating. But I could hear the porch. So I said, "I do not. Y'all are too loud." And I said, "We live here. It's the middle of the day. And you just need to respect that." And so they said, "Well, we'll do that. We said we would do it. We'll do it." I said, "I do not want to call the police, but I will." and they were pretty, rude. So they maybe notched it a little, then about 5 minutes later it's back up again. So I called the police. Police did come, and they did notch it down. But that's just no way to live. I can't live that way. I love this island. You've cut down every lot with major houses and cut down all the vegetation, all the music, all the sound. There's no insulation from anything. It's just you're right there with everybody screaming and hollering. I think the moratorium is a great idea. Of course, y'all had time to do that before and backed away from it. And so in the meantime, how many houses have been raised? How many residents have left? I don't know the answer to that, but I know that it's a good many. And y'all, today, you're talking about punting it to 30 more days and 30 more days and 30 more days. What do you think is going to happen in 30 days? In 30 days, how many houses are going to go? How many residents are going to leave? We're turning this island into just a tourist attraction. And if that's what you want, I don't want it, and I'm not going to be here. And so I encourage y'all, I implore y'all, I beg you to try to do something. Have courage to do it. I know your neighbors might get mad, they might lose a little bit of money or whatever, and then you gotta go to the bar and sit with them and they're gonna be mad at you. But that's why you're hired. That's why you were voted for. That's why we put one of the reasons I voted for you this time was somebody said he always votes for the residents. He does what's good for the residents. And so I believe that. And so, but y'all gotta, please think about us. It may take some courage, but that's why you ask for the job, is to do the job, and I guess. So I rambled and carried on and ranted, but I hope I made some sense.
Thank you.
Darlene Rawls, 5 Red Sunset. I've lived here for 23 years. I appreciate all that y'all do. I spoke at the last meeting and I've sent y'all emails, probably too long of emails. I was challenged by the mayor, which I appreciated, to come up with a list of options. I really don't care about the moratorium. I don't have a dog in that fight. And part of me goes, wow, all these new houses going up, maybe they won't become huge rental houses. My dog in the fight is event houses. There are 17 commercial properties on this island where people can have weddings, parties, and all of that. And we basically have converted our residential area into a commercial area by letting all the short-term rentals have huge parties. My husband and I have owned 7 short-term rentals. We only have 2 now, but they're not being handled the way where we live, the way they should be. 2 weekends ago, a house across the street had lovely little children swimming in the pool. We hear them screaming, being happy. 3-bedroom house, there were probably 8 or 10 people there. It was fabulous. Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock, 12 cars with high school graduation party showed up with barely any adults. And at 4 o'clock, the rap music I can hear through my house. And I live a football field away. I called the police, they were wonderful. They came, they shut them down. They probably went to a different house where the other people worked for that high school. It was a local high school. The next morning, 12 people came out of that house with their suitcases, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, left. It was a 24-hour event. I shouldn't have to put up with that. Cars are parked on our single-lane dirt road. Fire and EMS can't get to me. The police have to come. It's a septic tank with 2 bathrooms. If you look up their VRBO, and I quoted it and I sent it to all of y'all, a year ago, one of the renters said, your septic field is bubbling up in the road. We all live on septic tanks pretty much. We have no reason to not do the 2+2. I love hearing children in these houses. I don't love hearing bachelorette parties and wild 49 wedding events and police coming and the septic tank overflowing. We need to make a decision as a city if we respect our septic tanks, and that's where I feel right now. I appreciate all you do, and I know there are hot angles on every side. In reality, we are the lucky few that can live on this island. We've lost a lot of people that used to live here. That's all I have to say, and I appreciate it.
Thank
How you doing? Richard Parker, live at 1029 West Ashley.
Avenue. I appreciate your service. I don't envy where you are right now. I wanted to say three things. I want to talk about the lot at 206 West Arctic. It's in the second block west. And I'm speaking to the Ordinance 822 to rezone that block from island commercial to two-family residential. I bought it as two-family. I bought it as island commercial. And we had a dream to come down here and open up an inn over a grocery with a coffee shop in it. My wife and I. And if this passes, we won't be able to do that. But there's more to talk about than just that. Number one, I don't see a real good reason to make a change. And I've been in situations all my life where I've had to make some changes and it's hurt some folks. And looking back on them, I made some wrong decisions to make a change. And I don't see the reason to make this change. I don't see the big benefit of going to two-family residential. And I hadn't heard from anyone up here to tell me what the benefit that is. The block is unique because it's bordered by 3 roads. It curves back in right there where the 3rd Street Park is. And the block already has 2 large condominium complexes on it. So it's never going to be an attractive block to build another residence and live there. So my vacant lot, there's maybe 12 parcels on that lot. My vacant lot is either going to be 2 short-term rentals or it's going to be the inn above the grocery coffee shop. We'll have supervision with the inn above the grocery coffee shop, but I'm hearing a lot of talk about problems with short-term rentals. That's what's going in. So number one, is it necessary? And I can't see that it's necessary to make a change. But number two, it really hurts folks. I'm also a commercial realtor, and when this started, I put my sign up just to take calls. I'm taking about 50 calls, and when I tell them the 2 uses and that the city is making a decision, all of them want it to be island commercial. Not any of them want it to be two-family residential. And just with my valuation, it's about a $200,000 swing. So that's for me and my lot. I don't know about my neighbors on both sides, but you have to look at these 12 parcels and the individuals in all 12 parcels. And they could tell you what their loss is, but I can tell you it's about a $200,000 loss for me. So the third point is, what are we going to do about that? We are community. We live together. We're part of the same community. When one person in the community gets hurt, it hurts the entire community. So what are we going to do about it? And that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? She beat you.
I'm about to not be very popular based on the clapping. I'm Donna Bowling. I've owned on Folly, my husband and I have owned on Folly for the last 10 years. The moratorium wouldn't necessarily affect me because I do have a license. We intend to retire here next year. It will be our primary home. My concern about instituting the moratorium is that the data points that we're using with regards to, as an example, I've owned a home on Folly. We haven't had a violation in 10 years. It's very well managed by Carolina One. We're actively involved. And I don't know that the answer is there needs to be a moratorium on short-term rentals. There needs to be teeth. Someone said earlier, there needs to be teeth in the laws that we have on the books. There needs to be concern about what is it the size of the property? Can we do an analysis on the size of the property? But to have this moratorium, it would be in my best interest right now if we didn't allow any more short-term rentals. I'll live here. There's a house before me. There's a house after me. But I don't know that it's being fairly judged. And is it a situation where we already have things on the books that can control it? I also wonder if, and my data is anecdotal right now, but we're seeing on just Hudson as an example, we've seen homeowners in the last 2 years that have purchased that are residents. So I don't know that there's not a watermark where, hey, we saw this huge uptick because of COVID and people could work wherever they wanted. They could come down and be where they wanted for short-term rentals and work where they are. I just don't know that we have an accurate data point to all of a sudden put a halt on being able to allow short-term rentals. I've talked to our property manager, and it's my understanding that some of these folks going into short-term rentals are not even able to have full bookings. So I don't know that putting a moratorium on short-term renters is the way to go. Thank you.
Tim McCarroll, Untitled Cooper. Last person that just spoke, was your name Diane? Donna, okay. She took a lot of what I was going to say, and this kind of goes towards not the moratorium so much as a lot of the short-term rental proposals in general. Is there data anywhere about like one of the issues that was written up was short-term rentals cause an unwanted atmosphere on the island for full-time residents? Well, the budget for Folly in 2015 was like $5 million. It's now almost $11 million. A lot of that, additional revenue probably comes from short-term rentals and the increased property values and property taxes. So if we have this bias against short-term rentals, what's the data? So where are the calls coming into public safety, I guess, saying, okay, we have a noise complaint, we have whatever, right? Is there data that we can see on this? And the other thing mentioned was there's an issue because the short-term rental fees don't cover the resources and et cetera. Well, how do we know? I mean, the day traffic coming in to use the beaches and the trash and the things those people do, how do we know how much of those issues are related to them versus short-term renters? Do we have any data that says, okay, these people got a ticket, they were publicly drunk, whatever, and they came in from North Charleston. So is there data that we're making these decisions based on? And then we're looking at hiring 4 people to supervise this. How many noise complaints are there in February and November? Is there a need for 4 full-time people? I mean, this could be a $300,000 expense at probably a minimum that the government's going to take on for these positions. What are they going to do? I mean, we also have a police department that enforces these. The rap party that you mentioned, if a city worker is going to go by there for a noise ordinance, I can't imagine that they're going to be taken very seriously versus a cop going by there. That's going to get some attention. So I'm even wondering how effective that team will be, let alone what they'll be doing. But if there's, I've looked and I've called public safety. I mean, is there a way to get data on these issues? You may have it, and I know the short-term rental committee may have something, but is there anything that we can have to look at as well? And it'd be easier to support some of these things if we knew that.
The major thing was the number of rentals has increased year after year.
Right.
So now you're up to 40% of this island is short-term rentals. So here is the. You got a problem? Need some water? Yeah. Well. So, the problem is, if you sit here or if you listen to the residents, where do you want the island to be in 5 years, 3 years, 2 years? Do you want it 50-50? Do you want it 60% rentals, 40% residents? Do you want it 40% residents or rentals and 60% residents? That's the question. The question is, how many calls do they get? Chief Yours can give you a number of calls they get for problems. Now, how many times do they write a ticket? Because right now it's a criminal offense versus changing it to a civil offense. So they'll get more tickets to be issued because they're not talking about taking somebody to jail.
Right.
They're talking about putting you in front of a judge. So those kind of things, you'll see that an uptick in those kind of data points, if you will. So, all that is part of the process, a part of the thought process that goes into what happens. if you have somebody who lives next door to a short-term rental, they get a lot more, I got complaints versus somebody who doesn't live next door to one. The lady, Donna, said that she had more people buying in her area that are not short-term renters. That's great for that section of the street. On my street, the houses I saw sold lately have all turned into short-term rentals. So, you know, it just depends on where you are, where you're sitting.
Right. The short-term rental doesn't mean party house necessarily. If it does,
Well,
I can absolutely understand that.
90% of them are, that's what happens.
90% of short-term rentals are party houses? Really? I would love to see some backup for that.
I would too.
Yes.
If, no, I mean, I've had 2 on the island for 6 years. Never had an issue. So how is 90% of the short-term rentals are party houses? I mean,
Well, where are you two at? Are they surrounded by other short-term rentals?
I don't know.
Yeah, see, that's,
One's right next to the 200 yards down the street.
yeah, all right, thanks.
I mean, it'd be great to have a dialogue. I mean, I understand Robert's Rules of Order and format, but
We're halfway.
if there's a way to have a dialogue would be fantastic. I think a lot of people are frustrated because there is no way to have a question and answer. I mean, I appreciate your comments and your time. Thanks.
Anybody else? Okay, Lee next, and then Chris. Since Lee stood up about 4 times.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Levi Jackson, 610 East Arctic, and 2339 Palmer Creek Bend. I'm up here tonight to speak on behalf of me and my father. My father's been living out here since 1936, and I've been living out here since 1971. I've been a registered voter since 1989. As far as the cap on short-term rentals, I don't really think that's the way to go. I do believe in enforcing the rules we have in place. I believe in the least governed, the best governed. And if we do short-term rentals versus non-short-term rentals, zoning or district areas, that might be a better way to go. And me and my family, we do own 7 places out here. Some are long-term and some are short-term. So I understand, the differences between the both. And between me and my sister pretty much run everything. We do feel a need to provide, long-term residences for people, either they own or rent or whatever. We do believe in raising fees and charges for services provided by the city. I just don't believe a cap is the way to go. Maybe consider, zone, districts, areas, zones, things like that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, Chris, you want to say something? You stood up and raised your hand, either yes or no.
Raise my hand.
Okay.
I took the time to look at what records there were with the city of Folly Beach, the actual licenses for 2021. They are incomplete. They are incomplete. You're using a number of 40%. They're closer to 65% of the housing here in Folly Beach are short-term rentals in one form or another. I don't think anyone, at least myself, is opposed to short-term rentals. What I am opposed to is these mini hotels, the ones that come in here for 1 day, 2 days, and create havoc in a neighborhood. And I don't think anyone would want that in their neighborhood. Because most of the people who, as I've gone through the list of owners of the short-term rentals that are licensed, do not live on Folly Beach. They live in Connecticut, they live in New York, they live in Chicago, in apartment buildings. They live in all around this country. Very few live on Folly Beach who own the short-term rentals. About 5%. That's the numbers that actually come out of the accommodation tax applications and the records here on Folly Beach, as well as data scraping from the web through Airbnb, HomeAway, VRBO, and all the rest of them. And if you look at many of those places, okay, many of them are fire traps, pure, unadulterated fire traps. If, however, okay, you decide not to do something about short-term rentals, I think this council has to put together a response when media comes to you and a family who has rented one of these dangerous short-term rentals dies in one of our fires and they ask for a comment from the city. Thank you.
What's your name and address for the record, please?
Christopher Marley, 415 West Hudson.
Thanks.
All right, anybody else?
Dr. Diana Vincent, 1008 East Arctic. I was not going to speak, but I would like to kind of level the playing field. 25 years, I'm across from the ocean, short-term rentals, long-term rentals, long-term homeowners. My concern with a cap and inactivating caps is that when I die, that my daughter and her husband and my grandchildren won't be able to keep the house and have time, because they're mid-career, they can't be here the whole time. So don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Find a medium, especially for us 4%ers. Been here. I have a party across the street, and sometimes things happen, but it's not as often as I have peace and quiet. And I would love, my daughter's here and the grandbabies are playing at the beach. If you take away, you put that cap on there or the wait list, what happens if she gets the house and she can't rent it right away, or someone gets deployed, or someone has a stroke and they're living in their home and they can't rent it because it's inactivated. So please take a humane consideration for the people that have party houses and for the people that are long-term residents. If this is my home and where I raised my daughter, you want to raise the grandchildren, please be broad-minded. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Elton Culpepper, 1208 East Arctic, here at Folly Beach. My wife and I have been living here since 2005 when we opened Big Wiggly. And we bought property down there in 1984 because my parents bought a place down here in the mid-70s. And I'm from Walterboro originally. And everybody from Walterboro goes next to the beach. And I had 3 other brothers, and we all young teenagers, and Daddy decided he wanted to buy a little beach house. And he wanted to come to Folly Beach because we were getting in so much trouble at Fiscal Beach. So that's how I ended up down here. The thing that everybody needs to take from this tonight, no matter which side that you're on, is that you need to let your city council people know how you feel, because one person got 3 other people to get the mayor to put this on the agenda tonight. Lets you know 4 people can change what your property rights are.
Amen. Anybody
Verdict 203 East Erie. For anybody that's worried about ceding property rights, that's part of living in society. When we decide to live in a community, we cede certain rights so that we can have order and peace and quiet. I know that you can't have chickens in your backyard on Folly Beach, right? I understand that. So anybody that's moving to Folly Beach is agreeing to live by those rights. We're not ceding any property rights. I think it's kind of crazy to phrase it that way. This is just about the kind of community that we want to live in. Thanks.
Thank you.
Do you own it?
No.
He used to be on the air.
My name's Michael Keck. I live at 912 West Ashley. I'm from Charleston. Went to Merle Saint Elementary, graduated from Wando High School, lived in Mount Pleasant downtown, now Folly Beach the last 6 years. I mean, Charleston's growing, not just Folly Beach. Charleston is going crazy right now. People are moving here. I mean, I've owned businesses. I had a business downtown 18 years. You know what? I might be saying something people don't want to hear, but I had to close it because I couldn't afford to rent anymore. Downtown Charleston changed. That was 35, that was 22 years ago, 2 years ago when I closed it. I moved to Mount Pleasant, Coleman Boulevard. You know what? I was there 20 years. Mount Pleasant changed. It changed. Lots of people moved here. Property values went through the roof. You know what? It wasn't affordable for me to have a store there anymore. So I moved. I have a store now. It's been there 22 years on Folly Road. I rent from a Folly resident. You know what? The day is not far around the corner where I'm either going to retire or I'm going to have to close that store. You know why? The numbers just don't match anymore. Property values have gone up, the rent's gone up. I guess my point is, you know, you can't mess with people's property values any more than I can't tell my tenant what to charge me. She deserves to have her property values rise through the growing of Charleston, South Carolina. This is going to be like Atlanta. I mean, this place is huge. So for me, I've been here my whole life, 58 years. You know, there may come a time when I want to move because Charleston doesn't fit me anymore. I'm not saying I do. I love Folly Beach. I love Charleston. I've been here. But you can't take the rights of the homeowners, mess with their property values, and I think the moratorium's wrong. I don't think that you need hotels here on Folly and stuff. I mean, I love Charleston. And I wish it was back the way it was. But you know what? It's never gonna be that again. I mean, I had bicycle trails when I was a kid where the James Island Post Office is now. You know what? Those days are gone. And that's about all I have to say. I want you all to do your best to make a decision and watch out for your homeowners' property rights, their property values, and of course the best lifestyle that you can for all your residents, and at the same time, of whatever those decisions may be.
Karen Malia, 322 West Hudson Avenue. This is not about property rights. This is about community. What kind of community do you want to have in Folly Beach? Most of the people who came here because it was a unique and special place, not quite like living in downtown Manhattan or downtown Charleston. It had a vibe and it had a lifestyle and it had a sense of community. If you have 65% people renting out hotel rooms every night to a changing cast of characters like a revolving door, you will have no community left. And you will kill what people came here for in order for a couple of realtors and a lot of investors with high-priced paychecks making their money. So is it about money or is it about quality of life, lifestyle, and having a community that we all want to live in? Thank you.
Vince Perna, 305 East Huron. I appreciate all the work that y'all have done so far on this. And as we've heard, there are nuisances that come along with short-term rentals. There's no denying that. I think that there is an opportunity for us to work together to solve some of those nuisances without having to cap any of the property rights that people enjoy. But I'll save that for another time. I want to just talk about the ordinance tonight. The ordinance or the moratorium is not going to solve any of those nuisances that we have right now. So I'm not really sure what the pro, when you make your decision, what the pros on this moratorium is. There are a lot of cons. I'm aware of people who are actively applying for short-term rentals licenses that won't be able to get them if a moratorium is enacted. So that is causing actual financial damage on owners of properties on Folly Beach. And again, the nuisances aren't, the nuisances that we're facing aren't going to be solved from this moratorium. So I'm asking you to continue your work on finding solutions to all these problems without enacting a moratorium tonight. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Ordinance 00722, an ordinance exempting non-conforming multifamily uses in the residential two-family district from the substantial damage rule by amending section 16802, reconstruction after casualty damage. Have a second reading, have a motion for approval. Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I believe there's one area we had previously discussed, voted in the affirmative to remove the word natural from disaster. And I still see one reference to it.
Must be Scribner error. Where did you see it?
It's page.
I've seen it, but I don't remember
You
where.
see it's page 53B.
Okay. So
third line.
we'll make,
Yeah.
So we'll make sure that's removed before it gets codified.
Everybody comes in and says peace and they leave.
Anything else? Okay.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Dr. Houghton?
Yes.
Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Mr. Barker? Yes. Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Mr. Grooms?
He stepped out to his restroom.
That's a yes. He's not here. That's the way the rules read.
Yeah.
Mayor Goodwin?
Yes.
Passes.
Ordinance 8-22. An ordinance rezoning the following parcels of land located on second block west between Ashley and Arctic Avenues from island commercial to residential two-family, amending the zoning, official zoning map to reflect the change. I'm not gonna read every one of them. They've all been notified, signs posted. This is second reading. Have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Have a second.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Mr. Poe.
Dr. Houghton?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
No.
Mr. Barker? Yes. Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Grooms? Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Passes.
Ordinance 9-22, an ordinance amending dimensional standards, Island Commercial District by amending table 16501 to increase excuse me, ma'am, y'all, thank you. By increasing the required setbacks and set the maximum height at 40 feet for 3 stories. Second reading, motion to approve.
So moved.
Have a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Mr. Barker? Yes. Mr. Ellis?
No.
Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Mr. Grooms?
Yes.
Dr. Houghton?
Yes.
Mayor Goodwin?
Yes.
Passes.
10-22, ordinances rezoning the following parcels from downtown commercial to island commercial and amending the official zoning map to reflect the change. Second reading, have a motion to approve. So moved. Have a second.
Second.
Any discussion or question? Mr. Poe.
Mr. Barker? Yes. Mr. Ellis?
No.
Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Mr. Grooms?
Yes.
Dr. Houghton?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Mayor Goodwin?
Yes.
Passes.
This is where we have to put in zero setbacks, so we can figure out how to do that. Ordinance 12-22, an ordinance creating the Center Street Overlay Zoning District. Second reading, have a motion to approve. Moved. Have a second?
Second.
Motion to amend? Yeah, I need to figure out where to put that.
Okay, add it as number 6 under E, district-specific standards.
Okay.
There should be no setbacks. And the required front, rear, and side yard setbacks are 0.
Just say all setbacks are 0 for downtown commercial overlay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to amend this. Be adding on page 71, E6, to say all setbacks and Center Street overlay will be 0.
Second.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So now, how does this affect the non-standard lots?
On Center Street, just the one street. They're all basically non-standard because there's no setback from, you're talking about the Crab Shack to the new, what do you call that room?
Mm-hmm.
Recovery room to Mr. Paul's, they're all 0 setbacks. It just keeps that in line.
Okay.
Just for that one street.
All right,
Just
thanks.
for Center Street.
I know it's a long meeting. Thanks
Yes,
for answering
fine.
my question.
Any other questions or comments?
On the
On the amendment?
On the amendment, Mr. Brooms?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Dr. Houghton?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Mayor Goodwin?
Yes. Back to the ordinance as amended for the overlay.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Dr. Houghton?
Yes.
Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Mr. Brooms?
Yes.
Mayor Goodwin?
Yes.
Passes as amended.
Ordinance 13-22, an ordinance rezoning the following parcels from island commercial to downtown commercial. Amending the official zoning map to reflect the change. Second reading, have a motion to approve.
So
moved. Second. Any questions or discussion?
Dr. Houghton?
Yes.
Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Mr. Brooms?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
No.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Passes.
Okay, ordinance, give you a second to catch up. Ordinance 14-22, second reading. Ordinance rezoning the following parcels, including them in the Center Street Overlay District, amending the official zoning map to reflect the change. This is for the overlay district. Second reading, have a motion to approve.
Yes.
Any second? Second. Questions or comments?
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Mr. Brooms?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Dr. Houghton?
Yes.
Mayor Goodwin?
Yes.
Passes.
Ordinance 15-22, you get a break here. An ordinance amending chapter 166 of the Folly Beach Code of Ordinances by creating section 166-13 pedestrian improvements to require the construction of pedestrian improvements in the right-of-way upon development of for substantial improvement or structures located on parcels in the commercial district in areas for which the city has approved a conceptual design for multi-use paths. This is the second reading. Have a motion for approval.
So moved.
Have a second. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Dr. Houghton?
Yes.
Mr. Brooms?
Yes.
Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Mayor Goodwin?
Yes.
Passes.
So we shift gears. This is ordinance 21-22, second reading. Ordinance to provide for the adoption of the fiscal year 2023 general fund budget containing estimates of proposed revenues and expenditures for the city of Folly Beach, South Carolina, beginning July the 1st, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023.
Motion to approve.
Have a second? Second.
I have a question. Okay. I don't even know how you want to do this formality wise. We have an ordinance coming up later, or a resolution to move money from this current year budget into the next budget. But there's some things that don't match up. They're not going line item to line item. And I don't really care for that. And in particular, police overtime and fire training is $48,000 that's moving from those line items into central dispatch units, reserves, things of that sort. I'd rather that move into this year's fire training and overtime budget, and then we take that money and lower the millage rate that we raised last month.
Is that your motion?
I don't know how to do it because it's coming up later to move the money from fiscal year to fiscal year, but we're talking about this beforehand. So I don't know formality wise how to do that. That's what I'm asking. But if you look at which one is it?
That's what I'm looking for. So it'd be 2020, 21, 22?
Yeah, 21, 22. You've got the police overtime and fire training. It comes out to $48,000. That's most of what we just raised last month. So if we're gonna roll that into central dispatch reserve, I'd rather just roll it into this year's budget and save that money from the millage increase. Does everybody see what I'm saying? I think we spent like 64,000 or something. We have 68,000 we moved over last month with the budget. We raised the millage rate to cover the health insurance plans. Well, now if that stuff's gonna roll over, if it's rolling over line item, I'm okay with it. But this isn't line item, it's line item to a different reserve, which that's not what we're budgeting for. That's kind of telling us that we're not budgeting right. So let's just move it over to the same line item and save that money.
So you're proposing to move,
What we could do is I could just pull it out of this ordinance, and then when it comes to the next one, then recommend that it just rolls over to the next fiscal year line item. I don't know if that's the most proper way to do that or not.
If you're changing the millage rate, I imagine it's gonna be done
yeah, it's gonna have to
now.
That's what I'm
Don't you
saying.
think?
That's
Well,
what I'm
you won't
saying.
change the millage rate if you move it from line item to line item.
If we move it, why not? It's left over from this fiscal year, so if we roll it into next fiscal year, then that's money that we're budgeting for next year that we don't need to budget for.
You're not talking about putting it in a reserve, you're talking about putting it in the active budget.
Yeah. I definitely don't want to go into centralized dispatch, we want to something else that we didn't specify for. I was gonna bring that later, but while we're on budget stuff, I thought it'd be best if we lower that millage.
You want me to explain the reason?
Yeah.
Okay. So we've had some issues pop up with our dispatch console, the one that we bought and used from James Allen a few years ago when we brought the dispatch back. So we bought a used console back then. Consoles are extremely expensive. We're having issues with its functionality and they no longer service the one that we had. So what we're limping along right now, it was before this budget was put together, so before you can go there. It's just something that recently came up. So what I started doing is going through our budget, finding line items that we hadn't spent in, and I wanted to put them into reserve. So that way, if that dispatch console does give out, that we have a reserve account that we can access so y'all don't have some big crazy expense in the future. We'll have some funds set aside. So it wasn't just willy-nilly. There was a reason why I wanted to do that.
I hear you. I still don't, we budgeted for certain line items.
Sure.
And now you're taking, we've already said that any excess funds are going into certain infrastructure demands that we have coming up. And we've already said that. So in my mind, it's shifting money from out of that and it's just diverted to another place. I hear what you're saying,
yeah.
But I don't agree with it. Okay. I don't agree with the process. If that's a problem when it comes up, then we can deal with it then, and we find something that we can do.
Yeah, and
there's
if you guys
plenty of
want to do
places.
that, yeah.
But switching line item from line item, I don't agree with that. That's pretty much telling us that we're not doing our job. We're not, you know what I mean?
I gotcha. Yeah, the repairs started creeping up here at the end of the budget, so it wasn't something that we already had this budget read. It wasn't like we just didn't want to budget for it. And I just figured it's a very expensive, like off the cuff, we're talking $100,000 more to buy a console. And so I thought, man, I better start I had some money left over in a few accounts. I'm like, why don't we just grab some of that rather than letting it go?
I mean, I've got other questions about why that money's left over, to be honest with you. Like why $30,000 of overtime is left over, but we can get that one later. But instead, I think, I personally would rather see the millage go down.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's your guys' prerogative. I just wanted to give you the reason why I made that decision.
So Chief, in many ways, you're trying to be proactive, look at things, you know, things happen, so on and so forth. So the good news is you've given us a heads up, you've told us this could happen, so on and so forth. Part of the process is somewhat fluid, but also, I would never have known that till you brought it to our attention. So I think we just need to be mindful of that.
As somebody who's worked that same board you're talking about, it was glitching 2 years ago. And the ability for it to be updated to some of the new technologies is paramount to our communication department. And we cannot lose that. We can't have a moment without that vital call-in. You guys call it in. So it's something that we really need. And I will stress the importance of that. And I think we do need to have some type of emergency or budget for that to instantly change it and go with something that will take us to the next decade.
This isn't gonna cover it anyway?
It will cover part of it.
It'll cover part of it, but if an emergency comes up, every time an emergency comes up, we have the money for emergency
We'll have
stuff
the
like
money,
that.
but this would secure that we would definitely have the money instantly and not have to go through any channels. They could at least get a down payment on something.
I hear you.
I'm glad it's not a surprise. Appreciate it.
Bothers me that it was glitching 2 years ago, to be honest with you.
Well, you could get parts 2 years ago. You can't now.
I mean, but you're controllable going on. I'm not even starting that
You
work.
got anybody else? So we're back to the budget. So we just need to vote on this budget we got, because I don't know how to change that. If you want to kill resolution 2122 when you get there, that's fine. Gives me time to get a hold to you, Mr. Gessner, and decide how that happens correctly.
So if we want to do what I'm saying, then we kill 2122.
I said that's what you have to do.
But then they're not going to have time to get that stuff in before the budget rolls over. So nothing's going to be done.
Well, yes.
Should we vote on 2122 before we vote on the second reading of the budget? Just change the order of the agenda?
No, not really. We took it like we did.
If we vote on this, that'll set the stage for finalizing the budget on the second reading.
Well,
Need a motion to table it until after the reading of 2122?
We could move forward with Mr. Rich's proposal to vote to amend the budget by reducing it by 48,000, this total. And then when you get to 2122, that money would be replaced by passing 2122.
Then just make the change on 2122. From central dispatch service to whatever the same line item.
we're going to reduce it by how much?
We have to reduce
48.
all of these line items by each one of those amounts.
Yeah, but I said, how much did that add up to?
$71,000.
71,000? So you're talking about reducing the budget. Reducing the public safety budget.
I believe it would be technically correct. We have to make a motion to reduce each one of these. I think we could do it as a group, but we reduce each one of these line items by that respective amount.
But they're all,
A total of
excuse me,
71,000.
sorry. So they're all in the police budget. So we just say we're gonna reduce this line item by $71,000, which would bring it to,
Is that already in? I thought he was wanting to transfer this to.
So these are current year funds that he'd like to roll over to next year to a reserve. And so this amendment would, each one of these has a corresponding line item in the 2023 budget. So this would reduce those line items by an equal amount to this. And then when we go to 21-22, we'd roll this money into the next year's budget to make up for what we just took out.
With the objective of not increasing the millage?
It knocks it down almost a whole.
Yeah.
So this has to go to 4, 6, 3, 4, 438. That line item. So it'd have to have a motion to amend the public safety budget line item from 4705, 438 to 4634, 438. You know, a motion.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 3, 4, 5. I make a motion, we amend the public safety line item from 4705, 478 to 463, 4438. Hope we got those numbers right.
Yeah.
Said them fast.
Second.
Any other comments or questions?
I could start the argument that, number one, it's good. I mean, I like lowering the millage rate, but the state only lets you raise the millage rate so much per year. And we've increased everything to keep up with the cost of living. And I mean, it's a hard choice, but reasonably, you have to be fiscally responsible and creep up the millage rate with the cost of living. And then the second part that I would argue is that the expenditure later down the road is going to be more expensive. Everything's going up.
Anyone else?
I don't think this is gonna preclude us from doing the work the chief was talking about, just changes the budget. So, I mean, that work is still gonna happen, that change is still gonna happen, so.
You're just gonna have to come back and find out how to finance it later.
Yeah, I say we go with the budget that we got now. There's a lot of trouble to change budgets. And we've got a balanced budget. I think it's, I take the chief at his word, and he knows how to run his department, and we go with it as is.
My question is to the chief. You know, can you live with that? I mean, is that reasonable? I mean, honestly, I'm yielding to you as the reality of the situation.
Well, I mean, the budget's y'all's prerogative. I was just, it's an expense that is coming up, and I was trying not to kick cans, and so I thought if, rather than having to come up with 100, 125 grand later, at least we'll have some money in the savings account. I'm not asking for it as active money. Y'all are still gonna have to vote to spend it.
Right.
So I'm not trying to pull one over. I'm literally just trying to take some money that we haven't spent this year, put it in a savings account, so that way if the console goes down, we have the money, or at least a large chunk of the money to purchase it. That's all it is. It's how I would do my home financing. I mean, you know, you put money away for something you know is gonna come up. That's all I was trying to do.
When we talk about the budget millage rate, this is an annual thing. That's how much the millage rate is going to be from now on. So if you leave it higher, then that expense is going to cause it's more money for you to play with. If you lower it now, it makes you more financially conservative. It makes you spend the money more properly. Plus, y'all act like he's not going to get this motherboard when it goes down. We are going to get it for him. It's going to happen, like Bill said. It's just going to happen a different way.
But to Mr. Ellis's comment, if you don't go for 2% millage rate this year, which will be all you can get, next year you don't do a millage rate increase, we historically don't do it for 2 or 3 years, you still won't be you will never catch up with the cost of living going up, with the cost of what we have to pay to James Island because of that annexation going up every year exponentially.
I know.
So
I fully understand.
you understand it, so I'm just saying, by backing off the millage rate now that you already took the stand to say we would do it, I don't think it's a good budget move myself personally. So any other
You're lowering
comments?
our property taxes now, and if we have to do it in the future, then we have to do it in the future. But
You're not
no
gonna-
reason to up it now.
You're not gonna
No,
lower,
no, we
you're
don't
not gonna
have to
lower
do it
my
next
property
year.
taxes that much with that little bit of difference.
Well, I'm sorry you see it that way.
The motion is to move this money into reserve for next year.
No, the motion is to move take $71,000 off this line item.
To
To
move
reduce,
this forward
no,
and
to
then
reduce
have
the-
a
to
similar
reduce the-
reduction in the
no,
budget.
No, this motion is to take $71,000 out.
And move this money forward to fill that hole.
Well, but it would reduce this year's budget down from 10,284.97 to 10,213.97. which would affect the millage rate, I don't know how much, which is not gonna be that much. So, you know, there you go. Any other comments, questions?
So do we know how much it will be affected and what the millage increase will be?
I don't know what the millage rate will be, because I don't
Without
have
it?
that. Huh?
How much the millage, so we'll still have a millage increase even.
Just
even
won't be a
with
full
the
2%,
proposal.
it'll be 1.8 whatever.
Okay.
Instead of 2.
I guess Lee's not here, but do we have any idea if we're rolling reserves forward out of this year's budget when we finally do the final count?
Well, you do every year, you have that whole list in your budget. I don't have the budget book with me, but you had the whole list of where.
I don't remember what it
I
was.
don't remember what it is either.
And the reserves that are rolled forward are money that are currently in reserve that we didn't spend. So those reserves roll over independent of this resolution. The rollover resolution is for non-reserve funds to be carried over to next year.
So what are we voting on exactly?
What you're voting on right now. All right, this is a good question. So what you're voting on right now is a motion to take $71,000 out of the public safety line item, which will reduce the bottom line budget $71,000, which will change the millage rate increase from 2 to whatever, 1.8, 9, 7, 6.
Like 1.5.
Yep,
Well,
okay.
1.5.
That's all right. Okay, so we go through that, and then, let's just say whatever, I'm just trying to think ahead. And it passes, because that's what that is. Or it doesn't, then we go back to the original budget?
Go back to the original budget.
Okay, got it.
Okay,
So this is the vote
this
on
is
the
the
amendment.
amendment.
Mr. Barker,
No.
Mr. Rich,
Yes.
Dr. Houghton,
No.
Mr. Ellis,
No.
Mr. Farley,
Yes.
Mr. Grooms,
Negative.
Mayor Goodwin.
No.
Fails.
Okay,
All that work.
back to the budget as presented.
Mr. Rich,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Ellis,
Yes.
Dr. Houghton,
Yes.
Mr. Grooms.
Yes.
Mr. Farley.
Yes.
Mayor Goodwin.
Yes.
Passes.
Ordinance 2222, ordinance established a water utility budget and appropriating the necessary funds for the operation of the Folly Beach Water Utility for fiscal year 2023, beginning July the 1st, 2022, and ending June the 30th, 2023.
Motion to approve.
Second.
This is the second reading. Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Grooms,
Yes.
Dr. Houghton,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Rich,
Yes.
Mr. Farley.
Yes.
Mr. Ellis,
Yes.
Mayor Goodwin.
Yes.
Passes.
Too many pages at one time. Okay, ordinance 2322 is the sewer utility budget. Appropriating the necessary funds to operating the Folly Beach Sewer Utility for fiscal year 2023, beginning July 1st, 2022, and ending June the 30th, 2023.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
Mr. Farley,
Yes.
Mr. Rich, Dr.
Yes.
Houghton,
Yes.
Mr. Grooms.
Yes.
Mr. Ellis,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mayor Goodwin.
Yes.
Passes.
Okay, so now to boards and commission appointments. New business appointments to boards and commissions, committees. So we have 4 vacancies in the ATAX committee, 2 lodging, 1 hospitality, and 1 at large. We have 2 lodging and 1 at large, so we still have 1 opening. So a motion to approve.
So moved.
3 that we have, okay. That was second.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Yeah,
Mr. Barker,
yes.
Mr. Grooms,
Yes.
Mr. Farley,
Yes.
Mr. Ellis,
Yes.
Dr. Houghton,
Yes.
Mr. Rich,
Yes.
Mayor Goodwin.
Yes. So Parks and Recreations Committee, we have, 3 at-large openings. We have 3 folks all at large. Have a motion to accept the 3 we have.
Yes.
Have a second.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Go ahead.
Barker, yes. Mr. Ellis,
Yes.
Mr. Farley,
Yes.
Mr. Grooms.
Yes.
Dr. Houghton,
Yes.
Mayor Goodwin.
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Rich.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Passes.
So we have 1 election commission at large, no applicants, so we'll have to come back to that one. If anybody wants to be the election commission, you work about every 2 years, shortly, not much. But anyway, we still have an opening for that, and we still have an opening on the ATAX committee. And it would be a hospitality opening. Okay, let's see, ordinance 18's been pulled. Ordinance 2522, an ordinance to impose a moratorium on the issuance of a new business license, short-term rentals within the city of Folly Beach. It's the first reading. Can I have a motion to approve?
Second. Or so moved.
So moved. Do I have a second? Okay, no second. It's dead.
No, I'll second it for discussion.
Okay. All right, so we have a second. Discussion.
Well, the moratorium, I would propose an amendment or a change to it to limit it from 90 days to 30 days. And I say that because, as I said before, I think a 30-day pause would be good. If there's panic sales going on, as we've had some people describe, this would allow us to hold our feet to the fire, to put out something that tells people what we plan on doing or what we're going to do. And I'm afraid that the 90 days, it's been my experience that work will expand to fill the time allotted. And 90 days just is, I think we can do better than that. I think 30 days is appropriate. I don't think 30 is going to provide a hardship to anybody who's waiting to get a short-term rental, but I think it's a prudent move and a prudent change, and it puts, like I said, puts our feet to the fire to get something done after we've been talking about it so long.
Yeah, that's what.
So I'd offer that amendment.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
So, yeah, so now we'll agree that it just expires in 30 days. Shall expire automatically in 30 days.
And
As of the date of the second reading, which will be June the 24th. So it'll be 30 days from that day. If it makes it to the second reading. Any other comments, questions?
I think 30 days keeps our feet in the fire. After tonight and an hour-long series of comments, we need to get this done.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about our feet to the fire. You know, one of the things that struck me when I ran for office is that this was on the table. I mean, this is not a surprise to any one of us. Livability, defining it, community. We all love Folly Beach, and then it's the balance. Is it a cap? Is it? So I guess what I want to say, being true blue to that, and you know, you vote and people want to talk to you, and I feel that a process is necessary. I do feel, not that I want to every night look at a video or read an email or whatnot, but I do believe that it's not a negative thing to take a pause. I don't have all the answers by any stretch of the imagination. You know, is it 90 days? Is it whatever? Life is going to unfold, whatever the number is. Is it any? Is it not? But to me, I have no sense of urgency to do 30 or anything else, in the sense that if we do it, yes, I'd rather see, even though it feels like we've lived this for years. But people have lived it. We have lived it for years. It's not the same place I came to 14 years ago. That's life. But I also have a real hesitation being involved as a northerner, going back to some of the places, like, oh my God, where's this, where's that? And that's life, but it's not sometimes the life that I wanna have with strangers as neighbors, and especially when I saw a recent video that was just, compelling. So I have no problem, well, I'm gonna be forced to have a problem and make a decision, but whatever the decision is, the dialogue doesn't change, the process is important, and the voices are part of what has to happen. This is one, I think, one of the significant decisions we'll make. So I hope it made some sense. And the other thing about it is, that's why we are unfolded. We'll agree to disagree, I'll go to vote, somebody will grab me, point out this, I'll be at the PO, and all this, and I'm like, yep, and what are we gonna do about it as a community? So that's just my point. I could go, I've sat on the fence, as I told my colleagues, and I think we'll do the right thing, all of us.
Any other comments?
I'd like to echo what she said. I like the process. It's hard, but it's hard for people to have different opinions. You have just a natural inclination that you want to somehow give both parties what they want, but I'm glad that we're going through the process. I'm judgment at anybody. I don't feel like I'm being judged. Maybe a good analogy is like, you go to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. One person puts on their peanut butter first, their jelly second. The next person might put their jelly on first and their peanut butter second. Maybe that's not the best analogy, but
Fluffing nut jelly, you need it.
I think the process has been good, but I do feel the pain out there, and I think both sides are right. I think that there are some people that they need to answer, and I think there's some business things going on that's being influenced one way or another. So
I'm just gonna say real quickly here, somebody mentioned tonight that we've lost a sense of community. And I think the representation of everybody that was here tonight is that we really do have a great community that we do live in. And I'm so proud to live here, and we made this decision several years ago, but it's just good to see everybody, regardless of which side you're on, but it's just good to see everybody care about where we are and where we live. And I just want to thank you for showing up tonight, everybody.
So I came into tonight's meeting not supporting whatsoever a 90-day moratorium on the issuance of new short-term business licenses. We've heard from a lot of people in the room who said a moratorium on short-term rentals, and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a moratorium on the issuance of new short-term rental business licenses. So that said, I can support Mr. Folly's proposal of a 30-day moratorium, which will in fact hold our feet to the fire in such a way, and many of you weren't in the room during our work session. What this entails is that we will have a first reading, a second reading. We'll get this entire thing done within the next 30 days. And if for any reason we can't, I will not be supportive of any further moratoriums as it pertains to this matter.
And let me just build on what you said. So this moratorium does not affect you if you had a 2021 rental license. You can renew your rental license. It does not affect you if you have a house that had a 2021 business license and somebody buys it, they can apply for a business license, okay? What it does affect is one that hasn't had a business license or one who doesn't have a business license at all from previous. So it'd be brand new short-term rental business licenses for 30 days. So that's where we are right now. Mr. Pope.
So, are we gonna change both paragraph 2 and 3?
Yes.
There's dates.
Yeah, it'll be 30 days. Just take the date out, put 30 days. Yeah.
if the amendment passes.
Yeah.
So On the amendment, Mr. Farley,
Yes.
Mr. Grooms,
No.
Dr. Houghton,
No.
Mr. Rich,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Ellis,
No.
Mayor Goodwin,
No.
amendment fails.
All right. We'll see. Back to the ordinance as proposed. It would make it September the 12th.
Mr. Ellis,
No.
Mr. Grooms.
No.
Mr. Barker,
No.
Mr. Farley,
No.
Dr. Houghton,
Yes.
Mr. Rich,
No.
Mayor Goodwin,
Yes.
fails.
Yeah.
3 council members.
Didn't lie to me. Whatever. Okay. Resolution 1822. Resolution by Folly Beach City Council awarding the contract for final design and engineering and permitting for the Cooper Avenue pedestrian path to Davis and Floyd in the amount of $74,500 to be paid from existing bond funds.
Motion to approve.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Did you get a second?
Yeah.
We got it. Mr. Grooms. I want to bring this up again. I brought this up earlier, a couple months ago, during something else, but this seems to be the good time. We're looking at Cooper Avenue and we haven't even finished Ashley Avenue yet. We need to get the initial square finished and see how it gets used before we designate every street from Center Street through a block to have pedestrian paths and we take away that much parking. That is a huge amount of commercial district parking for employees, for people, a lot of people parking there, not just us, residents parking right of ways too. As you look at employees, customers, all that. And if we're gonna sit there and we're gonna spend $75,000, then we are full in on this Cooper Avenue path. We need to hold off on this and see how Ashley's done first. Cause I think if you're gonna have a path on Ashley, Cooper, I don't see the vast people using Cooper over Ashley. I think you can break them up and even do every other block. I think this is way too big of an investment right now until we get Ashley finished.
Actually, sort of agree. I think we should move forward, but I think we should move forward more completing the square that Mr. Rich is talking about, and maybe put the next path on Hudson to provide those that live farther, what would that be, north? Instead of having one on Ashley and then just one block over and completing that one. It seems to me that by having one that was farther north, it might create more value and create a square that would go from, you come up Ashley, you turn on Second, and instead of turning immediately on Cooper, you would actually walk down to, Huron and then come back to
Huron, I
Center
think,
Street.
because the thing going all the way to Indian was kind of wasted a little bit. But Huron is one of those streets where, especially on the ocean side, there's hardly any parking that you're losing that far back, and it makes more sense to go there. Cooper, there's a ton of parking, and a lot of it's resident parking that park in the right of ways because the houses are built too far out.
And Huron would also support getting to the post office, where you could, once you got to Second, from any street on the east side, you could come down, hit Second, then hit Huron and go to the post office and never have to walk in the street once you got to Second.
I say we shoot this down and just evaluate the whole plan again later on and see what our process wants to be.
Anybody else?
I'm just bouncing off what he was saying as well. There's a lot of drainage ditches I know on Cooper. One of the things I've always wanted to do is from our funding that we've got from the state is to fix our drain problems, and then we could actually put a pedestrian pathway or a multi-use pathway over some of those drains instead of a car trying to park on that side and fall into it, or people drunk falling into it. And people, downtown's important to us, I think, from just what we are and what we do as a community. And to have, when it does have a hard rain, we'd have something that would be more useful than ditches. So
The problem is those ditches don't belong to us.
This is true.
So you have to go through a lot of other hoops to get them to agree to close them in.
But if we have to do that, then I think that's the right thing to do for downtown.
Well,
so
I'm just saying, don't bank on closing the ditches off, because it's kind of like overhead power lines. You know, it's easy to keep open ditches open than it is to keep pipes unclogged. And, you know.
Yeah, we gotta
So
be that point.
that's all I'm saying.
But something to look at.
That's all I'm saying.
I hear you.
Mr. Pope.
Mr. Parker?
So we're voting on the amendment?
No,
It wasn't an amendment. I just said shoot down.
No.
Mr. Ellis?
No.
Mr. Farley?
No.
Mr. Grooms?
No.
Dr. Hutton?
No.
Mr. Rich?
No.
Mayor Goodman?
I'll say yes.
Fails.
Resolution 1922, awarding $500 to the Folly Beach Civic Club to publish a 6-page color edition of the Sandsper in July by recommendation of the Community Promotions Committee.
Motion to approve.
Have a second?
Second.
Anybody?
I will say that last edition was awesome. The editor really done a great job. So
Appreciate it.
leave it at that.
Okay. Any other comments?
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Dr. Hutton?
Yes.
Mr. Grooms?
Yes.
Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Mayor Goodman?
Yes.
Passes.
Okay, 2122, a resolution by Folly Beach City Council transferring remaining budget funds within the fiscal year 2022 general fund budget to reserve accounts for projects in the future fiscal years. All right. Have a motion to approve.
Yes. So moved.
You have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion on this? Mr. Pope.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Mr. Grooms?
Yes.
Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
No.
Dr. Hutton?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mayor Goodman?
Yes.
Passes.
Resolution 2222, resolution Folly Beach City Council for the adoption of fiscal year 23 budget containing estimates and proposed revenues and expenditure for the Tourism and Visitor Promotion Committee beginning July the 1st, 2022 and ending June the 30th, 2023. Have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Any comments? I'd just like to say that this group does a lot of good work. And they've done a lot of good work over the past few years and look forward to many more years of good work.
So we should say no.
Thanks, Ed.
So we should say no.
Yeah. It depends on if you're Helen Hill or not.
Thought about it. I thought about it. Well, that's honestly why I thought about it, 'cause that's a large chunk of change going on.
Okay. Mr. Pope.
Dr. Hutton?
Yes.
Mr. Grooms?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Mayor Goodman?
Yes.
Passes.
2322, a resolution, Folly Beach City Council increasing the rates for paid parking from $2.50 an hour to $3 an hour, and from $10.50 per day to $11 per day. We have a motion for approval.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I think y'all had a lot of discussion about this when I was not here, so. Mr. Pope?
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Dr. Hutton?
Yes.
Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
No.
Mr. Grooms?
Yes.
Mayor Goodman?
Yes.
Passes.
Resolution.
Sorry, Eric, you understand it?
Okay. 24-22, resolution Folly Beach City Council awarding contract to Elko Coastal Consulting Incorporated in the amount of $7,600 to complete an island-wide mapping of the critical line and bulkhead inventory. Have a motion for approval.
Second.
Any questions?
Yes, I have a question. I had hoped to pose this of Dr. Elko, would have done so during the work session. Couldn't make it tonight, so Eric hopefully can help with this.
I'll give it a shot.
So this is focused on the critical line and bulkheads, but we're not mentioning berms or other erosion control devices. So we not too long ago passed an ordinance to allow residents to erect berms rather than bulkheads as a more environmentally sensitive mechanism to hold back the tides and such. Wouldn't it be helpful to know where berms exist in addition?
Code is including revetments, bulkheads, and any identifiable berms that you can.
Okay.
You know, some berms are so low, if they're only a foot off the ground, you won't be able to tell, but they're gonna map anything that they can determine is actually a man-made structure.
Good, so I'm pleased to hear that. So in light of that, it would seem to me that we would potentially amend this anywhere where it says bulkheads to erosion control devices.
I think you could say structures, erosion control devices, anything like that.
Okay, so we've codified what we're buying.
Makes sense.
Well, so we got it, we already got it in one place in the resolution. We're in the first whereas where it talks about critical line and inventorying erosion control of structures. And March beach management, so it's just a matter of
title,
critical line and
So yeah, I see bulkhead in
the
the
third,
title.
the third whereas.
Yeah, bulkhead in the title, bulkhead in the third whereas.
Yeah, so I'm just saying we interchanged that, we've interchanged that term twice, so.
Right, and then it appears again in the the second to last paragraph with
Yeah.
bulkhead mapping option.
Right. Okay, so that's the amendment. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Ellis, Mr. Pope.
Mr. Grooms?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Dr. Houghton?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Mayor Goodwin?
Yeah.
Amendment passes.
So back to the original resolution as amended.
Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Dr. Houghton?
Yes.
Mr. Grooms?
Yes.
Mayor Goodwin?
Yes.
Passes.
So resolution 2522 is a resolution by Folly Beach City Council authorizing the administration to apply for green belt funds for the purchase of 502 and 504 East Huron. I have a motion for approval.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions other than what we've had already?
Dr. Houghton?
Yes.
Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Mr. Grooms?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Mayor Goodwin?
Yes.
Passes.
Let's see if this one passes. Resolution 2622, resolution authorizing the purchase of embroidery polo t-shirts for each sitting council person paid from council discretionary funds. This does not include me, folks. This is council persons from their discretionary funds.
It seems so controversial after this evening. I wish that man was here. Just to add a little team and levity. Throughout the time I've been on the council, and yes, I'm a former dean, so it's always about the t-shirt and the team. And so at different moments I was like, is now the time to have a t-shirt where we're all like pride and rah-rah. And so, yes, I was like, now is the time. But see, that's me. And so it's like $195-ish. But then the other thing, which I wanted to add to it, which I know what was, you know those pins that say Folly Beach? So like if you came to me like today and said, da-da-da-da, well, thank you very much. And can I give you a pin and get that going? So I also don't want to think we're like wanting new clothes or anything and sharing like the wealth. So I would like to, if I could, add like a present for you all. Like I like those.
Don't add it now.
Don't, okay.
Because you're gonna have to go back and read.
Okay, well then let me just be greedy.
$200 for all these shirts?
Yeah, one of
So those
each.
are not polo shirts. I'm sorry. Polo shirt, not raffle. I got okay. I'm thinking on the horse.
Well, excuse me, I mean, no. And it's discretionary funds, and it's not like, but like I said, it's a throwback from team and whatnot, and you know, I could have done it 5 months ago, but now we're so singing Kumbaya that, why not?
And on the back's gonna have a tarp.
Yeah, well, see, I thought about
Somebody
that.
gave me a shirt.
I gave that there Merry Christmas time that one year.
I thought about that. No bows and arrows, people.
Motion to approve.
Have a second? All right. We're down to it. Just getting goofy time.
Dr. Hudson,
Yes.
Mr. Ellis,
Yes.
Mr. Rich,
Sure.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Farley,
Yeah.
Mr. Groves,
Yes.
Mayor Goodwin,
No, because it didn't include me. I'm not part of the team.
passes.
Real Polish.
Hallelujah.
All right, we're down to resolution 2722. And this is a resolution awarding $1,000 to the Coastal Family Vacation Foundation to provide beach vacations to South Carolina residents, battling cancer recommendations for community promotion committee. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, questions? Mr. Bowes.
Mr. Rich.
Wait a minute.
I just do have a little bit of clarity. And I don't know, maybe you could help. I don't know. I support it. I think it's a great idea. One of the questions I had is just process and PCP, because that's kind of more of a local focused group, whereas to my understanding, this is going to bring people here from outside. And I thought about TVPC maybe later on as far as, because what I understand, I might be wrong, is these will be people coming here to vacation when they're in distress from cancer and things of that nature.
That's correct.
So, you know, that just seems like a good idea.
From South Carolina is my understanding.
Right.
From South Carolina, but you're bringing them here to show off the community and let them have a great experience before their final chapter. I get what you're saying. It's not a TVPC thing because that's meant to bring business into town. Whereas this is a community fund started by community people that live here and it's a way to show off our community. So
PCP.
No, community promotions. I mean, it's started by, the organization is started by people that live here. Bringing people to South Carolina in before they die from cancer, cancer diagnosis. And showing off our community because we get to live here, giving people a little beach vacation before they go. It's a nice thing showing off our community. So it fits the community. I'm just saying that's how it fits the community promotions and not TVPC.
Interesting. So.
You can argue from, and I don't want to get into a long presentation of this TVPC because you're bringing people in from more than 50 miles away and blah, 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 blah.
I'm just saying
there's an argument on both sides, but thank you very much. All right.
We all win, you know, just get the money from wherever.
Mr. Pope.
Mr. Farley.
Yes.
Dr. Hudson.
Yes.
Mr. Rich.
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Mr. Grooms.
Yes.
Mr. Ellis.
Yes.
Mayor Goodwin.
Yes.
Passes.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question before you close the floor.
All right.
On the walking paths, I'd like to see the walking paths continue to move forward. And while I voted against the Cooper, I'm wondering if we could reconsider and appropriate that money for an alternative other than Cooper tonight to keep that process moving forward.
Floyd and Davis and get an estimate.
Because that price is specific to that one
Yeah, we'd have to
project.
bring you a new estimate.
Well, perhaps we can get something ready for the next meeting that
We'll see if they can.
you can poll people. Okay, thanks.
All right.
Motion adjourned.
Citizen comments?
Citizen.
Mr. Groom,
Council comment.
Hour ago.
Yes, this Thursday, don't miss it, the Exchange Club is doing our One Nation Under God meeting with, and normally this is done for breakfast, but it's hard to get people into breakfast, so we're doing breakfast for supper Thursday at 7 p.m. Everybody's invited. I think the mayor said he's coming, and we got a couple pastors going to come here. It's a way to praise our nation, and of course, today's Flag Day, so salute.
If anybody's interested in serving on the planning and zoning, I've got a spot that I have to fill, so.
You have to be a resident.
Yes, I think
Just-
you gotta be a resident, don't you? Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
That's okay.
All right.
Thank everyone for coming. Have a good night.
Up to you, buddy.
Civic Club, thanks so much as far as the feedback goes, and we will have a little red, white, and blue edition. But let's just plant some seeds about Halloween, just saying. So, yes, I think we might go back to somewhat of the tradition. So what does that mean? That means we're gonna do things from before COVID and after. So, we're talking about a costumed beach week, just planting a seed, okay? Of course, the witches dance, the carnival, costume, the cakewalk, wait a minute, oh, and driving around on that hayride with your houses decorated and giving prizes. Just a little save the date.
For those of you that have been in the room for 2 hours and 17 minutes, or in some cases, almost 3 hours now, appreciate you doing so. And otherwise, everyone have a wonderful Independence Day holiday.
Have a good night.
4 hours.
The motion
So much
to
adjourned.
so moved.